Good afternoon to all the people out there in the world that are joining us today for our free webinar on rules. Today, we're going to go over simple rules, serious automation power, a rules engine deep dive. Today is Thursday, the 17th, and it is 1 p.m. Eastern. For those of you who are checking your watches, we're going to keep you on the edge of your seats. I would like to introduce my co-host with us today, Frank. What brings you to our meeting today? What are you going to talk to us about?
Today we're going to do kind of a high-level overview of the Decisions rule engine.
Very good, very good. How long have you been with Decisions, Frank?
I have been with Decisions for, let's see, in October it will be 5 years.
Very good.
So I've been here forever.
I've almost been here as long as you have. Have you learned anything intriguing since you've joined Decisions?
Just mostly a lot of really fun use cases with our clients, especially with the ones that are just trying to modernize older systems. So seeing how things used to be done and comparing them to how we can, in a modern sense, give them what they're looking for. What about you? Have you learned
Fantastic.
anything cool here?
I've learned a lot of cool things here. I've learned that our clients can do things faster from a drag and drop perspective than they would from a traditional software development life cycle. I've learned that we have a lot of value for our clients that could include Ryan or Easy Corp or Liberty Mutual or any of these clients that are leveraging us today from a workflow, from an automation, or from a rules perspective. So to jump in, our upcoming events, we will have an exciting, again, we're going with this theme of free webinars. Next week, July the 24th, we will be visiting with one of our retail clients. There is a grocery store chain in the Grand Caymans called Foster's. If you go there for vacation, there's probably a good chance that you would shop at one of their grocery stores for sunscreen, maybe for a little rum, maybe for a banana, kind of you name it. The next free webinar series, and I'm on the fence about charging. I'm talking to our marketing team. We may start charging, so I would give you a call to action to attend as many free webinars as you possibly can. But our next free webinar will be from a legacy to leadership. We're going to be focusing on our experiences in insurance and how to scale your organization with the adoption of low code development tools. If you have any questions, please feel free to dump them in the chat, and Frank or myself will address them accordingly, and I'll get started. So today our agenda is going to be a little bit about decisions. I'm going to get redundant. I'm going to talk to you about 3 different ways our clients use us. It doesn't limit our capabilities. It doesn't limit the projects that we do or the use cases that we find ourselves in all the time. But it gives you a pretty good concept of where to start. I'm going to then invite Frank to speak a little bit about our rules engine and our rules engine capabilities. Then he's going to take you into the rules engine and show you an actual demo of how to build a rule. And then we'll follow up with a Q&A. We invite you guys, if any of this is relevant, if any of this is making sense, and if any of this is spurring some creative thought on how to leverage decisions, please reach out. Please schedule a demonstration with us, and we would be glad to take you through our tool. The first way that our clients use us is from a rules engine perspective. We have drag and drop configurability that you could bring to life in about 9 different ways to make data that sits inside your tech stack, that sits inside your data lake, that sits inside your data warehouse. You can have about 9 different ways to consume that data, make it actionable, make it intelligent. We have a lot of use cases in financial services. You're seeing a few of our clients here that are leveraging us today. But anywhere that you may have like a legacy rules engine, logic that you may have to update, edit, or change from a coding perspective, that is a great place to dip your toes into the decisions water and come at it from a drag and drop perspective and short step or sidestep that software development lifecycle. The other thing that we do extremely well, we are very API friendly. And we have a lot of capabilities and a lot of examples that we can talk to you about from an API perspective. But one of the things we do very well is extend and expand existing applications. And so rather than going through a costly customization of SAP or NetSuite or Oracle or Salesforce, rather building out an automation for that application, a workflow, apply a rule, apply some type of dashboard to the data that exists in that database or in that application, and leverage decisions to simplify that application for you. If any of you have ever been in software, obviously all of you probably have, but if you've ever tried to customize an application, you understand that that could lead to kind of a version lock or a fear of, updates may break those conversions, that sort of thing. And then you could also get stuck with a project that just goes on and on and on. Like many of the home renovations that my wife complains about that I've started, and we're still in the process of painting the bathroom the right color. So we're very good at extending and expanding applications. The other thing that we do very well, going back to that integration capability, that API capability, is we do orchestration very, very well. So we can sit in your tech stack. We can be deployed on premise. We can be deployed in the cloud, in your cloud. We even offer cloud hosting services. You could schedule a job and decisions to call into your SAP ERP solution. We could call into a database. We could listen to it and do that in real time, or we could do some type of batch processing, grabbing that information, running it through a workflow, sending it to an individual to approve something via email, even sending that information to a client. Say you had a client that wanted a quote from your organization. The products lived in, or the customer service, the customer relationship application was Salesforce. Their data lives there. The product and the cost of that data lives in SAP. They email Frank via Microsoft. We listen to the email inbox. We go into Salesforce. We grab their information. We would go into SAP, grab that information, put it into a document, fire it off to them via DocuSign, all from an automated perspective. If any of that rings true, or if any of that automation exists in your world, or you would like that automation to exist in your world, please feel free to reach out and talk to us. We'll show you how we can do it. See a demo. I'm ahead of myself tremendously. So you can see a demo. You can see firsthand just how decisions can bring that automation to life for you. So what is a rules engine? I'm going to now turn it over to Frank to kind of talk us through what is a rules engine and how you can use it.
Thank you. Let's advance one slide, please. All right, so we're going to lay some groundwork here. Maybe not everybody knows what a rule is or what a rules engine entails. Before we dive into this in the demo, let's just go ahead and lay the foundations out here. So what is a rules engine? A rule is a designer element that is used to evaluate data against a set of pre-configured conditions. There are three uses for the rules and decisions that I can think of. If there is a fourth example, I couldn't think of it, but it may be out there. So primarily, the three that we use it for are outputting resulting data to a flow or as a response to an API call. This is probably the most common way that we use it. We can use rule evaluations to show or hide form control. Hey, if you don't belong to this group, you don't get to see the approval button, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And we can use rules to filter the data that's on a report or a page. If this one's not in an emergency status, it doesn't need to be shown to somebody. Only in this report, only show things that are that need to be flagged for a human to review. The rules engine is the thing that runs all of the rules at the right time and then processes their results. Can we advance a slide, please?
Sure.
So talk about some of the applications here, some of the benefits. Some of the benefits of using the rules engine include a lot of the benefits of just automation in general. First off, business process automation using a rules engine reduces the amount of manual decision making that would normally be done by human workers. And with
Mhm.
human workers being more hands off, it reduces the opportunity to introduce human errors. This is why automation is good. Because you have the rule engine handling orders of magnitude more process requests, like general approval for things, you can save
Mhm.
costs on your workforce and get your people focused on the things that people do best. Additionally, the rules engine can serve as a central repository of your design logic. Uh, the specific areas of responsibility that a small team may have normally handled now get surfaced to the whole company, reducing silos and reducing tribal knowledge. And last up, I'll go ahead and combine the last 2 points here. With a simple interface, you can take your subject matter experts who may not be tech savvy and put the tools for maintaining and evolving the system in their hands, which frees up your IT and your developer resources to focus on their own areas of responsibility. I think
Mhm.
that about covers it. So I'll turn it back to you, Jeff, for one more slide, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. And as I'm going in that direction, Frank, one of the things that we see commonly, and maybe you could elaborate on this, but one of the things that we see commonly are large enterprise organizations that have some type of legacy rules engine, right? And if it's in regards to any type of industry today, I think that we see more change and more uncertainty than we've ever seen um, in industry today, right? We've got a lot of things that are going on that are outside of our control, and I think that this speaks to one of the challenges of a traditional legacy rules engine developing code. If you were to make any changes to those rules, right? If a state was to change a regulation, if a company was to change pricing, if if there was a threshold at which you needed approval, we would have to go through a software development life cycle in order to update that rules engine. And from your perspective, Frank, in the projects that you've seen and had experience to, what does a traditional software development lifecycle look like? How long does that take?
Traditionally, it's a long time before you even get to the software development portion of it. It's a lot of gathering requirements, interviewing subject matter experts, trying to identify how the system actually works as a process at the point that you're taking a snapshot of it, and getting all that documented, developing a plan, identifying risks, identifying potential issues, weighing the pros and cons of going certain routes, talking about how you're going to have to staff the project or how you may have to train people. This is all before you even get to the actual development of the rule process that you're going to make here. So what we do is if you can surface all of this stuff and make it more available and less, beholden to legacy development styles, it speeds that process up. And immeasurably so, I believe.
Yes, I appreciate that. And so here are some common rules engine use cases that we solve for today. This is actually a fun slide, so take your time here. I guess this is for me to talk about, not Frank. That's cool. I can
So,
do this.
so
Uh,
just to reveal behind the curtain a little bit, we're trying to make this more conversational, and as a result, we didn't over rehearse. So, yeah, Jeff, this is actually you
exactly,
talking about some of
exactly.
our customer insights here.
All right, all right. So I can do that for sure. So, what you're seeing on this screen are a whole bunch of different company logos that exist as clients to Decisions Today. If you are working for an organization that may be the offices could be in a multi-story building, one of our clients is Otis Elevator. I have been stuck on an elevator. If any of you guys know me, you know that sometimes I like to speak without thinking. I've had long trips on elevators where I've said something that I wished I had retracted, and have to wait till I got to the 17th or the 21st floor to get off of that elevator and end the embarrassment that I brought to myself. One of our clients is Otis Elevator. In this use case, we're used as almost like an Internet of Things, where our rules engine listens to the heartbeat of that elevator. And so that if there was a situation where that elevator may need to go into service, that elevator may need to go offline to be serviced, or if that elevator was unfortunately to go out of service and you were stuck on that elevator, with me and my bad jokes, you don't want to be there very long. So Otis Elevator uses us from a rules engine perspective to listen to those elevators. And we're talking about several million calls a minute in order to make sure that those elevators are operating around the world on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a minute by minute basis. So that's just one example. Um, Another example, if I was going to pick on, some of our clients in the financial services space, we have Axis Bank. They're based off of the West Coast, and they're using us from a rules engine, a lead generation perspective. The way they're using us is kind of like master data management, or I think our banker friends that are listening would refer to it as householding, where we are looking at and pulling information out of their core application, out of the different databases that their clients may reside in. We're pulling information like, deposit size relationship, what type of loan do they have, the maturity of the loan, the payments of the loan, that sort of thing. And then we're running it through a rules engine. And then if they meet parameters developed and designed by Axis Bank, those individuals are then sent over to their marketing department to be sent information on new products that they could leverage. So lots of different ways that we are used. Another use case that I like to pick on and fond of is Easy Corp. If you're ever curious about seeing what your grandmother's watch was worth, Easy Corp is using us as a rules engine to determine the loan to value that you could get on your grandmother's watch. All kidding aside, now I'm going to give it back to Frank, and we're going to go into a demonstration of this rules engine that we keep talking about.
Fantastic. All right. Been a while since I've used Zoom, so let me make sure I know how to share the screen properly. Okay. And now the control bar is right over top of everything. Fantastic. All right, there we go. All right, so do you have my screen?
Yes, I do.
Cool. All right, so normally our customer webinars are about high-end topics like using AI and integrating with complex systems. Today, we are going to do something simple. We are taking it back to basics. We are going to talk about business rules. And specifically, we're going to talk about the decisions rule engine, all the different kind of rules that are associated with it, and what we can potentially do if we have a high-end application built for it. Now, right now, we are looking at the sort of the project hub space of our portal. I like to show this part off before I actually dig into the real Project Hub space. This is a list of the modules we have with Decisions. It comes right out of the box. So when you install Decisions, all of these modules are available. You can install them as sub-applications, subroutines. They give you additional access to tools within Decisions so you won't have to build them yourself. If you're thinking about using Decisions and you know your process integrates with, let's say, DocuSign, you're wondering how hard would it be to get Decisions to integrate with DocuSign? It's actually super easy. We would just click this install button here, and it installs it, and suddenly all the tools and flow steps that you need to interface with something like DocuSign becomes available. I love showing this off to people. It's a great starting point to get some ideas cooking. You can also see from my particular installed modules, I have AI, Google, Vertex, OpenAI. I've done a lot of AI stuff. So this is all here. Check it out. If nothing else, this is maybe get some ideas going here. You get Salesforce and Word to PDF. Fantastic stuff. All right. With that said, I'm going to go into the rules demo section now. So I have a project here that I've called rules presentation, and we're going to work in this project space to create some rules, create a flow. We're going to evaluate some of the pre-made ones that I have here. But let's kick this off easy. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do first. I'm going to make two rules. The simplest one is our statement rule. It's kind of the basic if-then rule. And then I'm going to do one of our most commonly used ones called the truth table. I'm going to show you how decisions executes on those, because it seems the first question that comes up after showing somebody what our rules are is, well, that's great. How do we use it? So let's go ahead and build some rules, and then I'll throw them in a flow and you can see how they work. So let's go to create rule. So this is going to be sort of maybe like a simple loan pre-screening process that we're going to make here. So I'm going to make a statement rule. Now you can, with all of our different rule types here, flag them to be your favorites so that you're always having quick and easy access to the ones you use most commonly. We're going to make a statement rule. Like I said, it's going to be basic if-then statement. And we're going to call this one just check salary and age range. I slept on my hand funny, so I am having a hard time typing sometimes. All right, so let's try that again. Check salary and I also can't spell and age range. All right, I would normally fill out the description on this. It's best practice just to, if anybody has to come in and support this behind me, the description would tell them what this is intending to do. But for the sake of speed and the demo here, I'm just going to go ahead and skip over that part a little bit. All right, so this is what our basic statement rule looks like. We have the ability to set our if conditions. We have the outputs of the then statements, and we can set up what kind of information this rule should be expecting to receive that it's going to be evaluating. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the inputs on this. So if this makes sense, I think the first thing we should check is somebody's age, since we are checking salary and age range. And maybe the other thing we should check is, hey, how about their salary? We're going to change the type of these. So right now they default to strings. We're going to change age to an integer. We don't really care if somebody is 24 and a half. We're just going to go with the whole numbers here. And the salary, that can be a decimal. We can express somebody's salary to hundredths of a dollar in the pennies position. So we'll go ahead and leave that one as a decimal. And when I go to close the designer, it's going to prompt me to save. And we're going to go ahead and save. And now we're going to take those two criteria, those two inputs, and we're going to create some logic with them. So first up, what we're going to check is the age. So let's take that first input, age. And we don't need it further formatted. We can just take the basic integer here. And here are the possible ways we can evaluate that. Now, because this is an integer, it's giving us by default the number rule. So this is, greater than, less than, are the numbers equal, that kind of thing. If this were a string, had we left it as a string, it would be asking things like, does this string equal another text field? Is this string in a list of other strings? It would be a different list of rules here. Decisions is a little bit content aware here. With the type of data that we're passing in, it only surfaces the kind of rule verbs that are going to be relevant to that. So in our particular case, we're going to do greater than or equal to. And greater than or equal to what? Well, let's say we want our loan applicants to all be at least 24 years old. Kind of arbitrarily picking here, but that's what we're going to do. And we have the option now. Do we want to add some more? Do we want to add an either or group? Let's just say, let's close it for right now. Oh, you know what? I did want to add another one. No problem. Just like this little guy here. We can either add the either or group or the condition. We already did age. Let's do salary. And we don't need that formatted. Same rules as before because it's a number, but we're going to do a greater than or equal to. And we're going to say we want any of our loan applicants who are applying, they have to make at least 40 grand a year. Sorry if you make 39 grand. Maybe we'll develop a different loan offering system for those individuals. But that's it. We've set up the rule now. When we drop this in a flow, what it's going to do is it's going to take somebody's age input and their salary input, just make sure that they're both true. And if they are, it's going to return true. If not, it's going to return false. Let me just real quick show you what our debugger looks like. This allows us to pretend like this is already in a flow, like this has already been plugged into the logic. And we can go ahead and enter some information here just to test it out. Let's say I am 25 and I make 100 grand a year. I wish I made 100 grand at 25. And yeah, both of those return true. 25 is greater than 24. 100 grand is greater than that. So return true. What if one of those was wrong? 23. Oh no, it doesn't even bother checking the second one. It's already failed. So it just returns false.
Mhm.
Well, speeds up the process a little bit, not to keep processing additional rules if you just need a true or false here. So that's it. It's just that easy. We have made our first rule. I'm going to make a little bit more of a complex one now. I told you I was making two for this first example, so that's what we're going to do. I'm going to close this assigner. It's going to prompt me to save, and I will do so. What was the other kind? I'm going to make a truth table. That is our second most used kind of rule here. This we're going to call credit score categorization. It keeps going away on me. Stop doing that. Score categorization. Again, I'd fill out the description because I'm a good developer, but right now I'm a presenter, so I'm moving faster. Okay, so what we're going to do here is when people come in with a credit score in different ranges, we want kind of different outputs. So we're going to set up our input data first, and that is going to be, can you guess? Credit score. This is also going to be an integer because I don't believe our credit reporting agencies use decimals. I don't think anybody has like a 750.3 or anything like that. So we're just going to leave it as an integer. Save. And now that we have that as a potential input, that can now be our column headers. So we're going to grab our credit score. We don't need it formatted. And we're going to go a little bit weird here. Instead of doing greater than or equal to or less than or anything like that, we're going to go with between because we're going to have a couple of different ranges here. And between allows us to declare the ends of those ranges. So we're going to go between. And because each one of these is going to have their different outcome, we get to declare those right now. I'm going to go ahead and just add some additional rows here. All right, so the first range we're going to look at, we're going to go, both the top and bottom number are included in this range. So we're going to go 650 as the top range, and our bottom range is 0. This is not the greatest credit score here. We're going to go with kind of maybe a middle range credit score situation where we go, let's say 651, because oh wait, nope, that's going to be our low value, 651. And our high value, let's say, is 750. Nice kind of middle range here. And then the last, we're going to go with the high range. So this is going to be, again, both. We are going to do as our high value, I believe credit scores go up to 850.
Mhm.
And our bottom one is going to be 751, one above the top of that other range. Now, so we're going to pass in a credit score. It's going to be like 675. What do we want to come out with that? We're going to change our output default here, which is currently defaulting to true or false, which doesn't make sense given what we're asking it to do. So we're going to change this. And instead of being a Boolean, a true false, we're going to change this to a string. And the strings are going to be what decision the system is making. So for our first one here, we're going to say, I'm sorry, if you're in that range, you're just auto-rejected. Apologies. No hard feelings. In the middle range, we're going to ask that somebody manually review what's going on here. And then for the top range, you know what? If you have an 850 credit score, you are auto-approved. We can't give you money fast enough. Now, what happens if the number is none of these? Well, we need a no match outcome. And for that, we're going to do error credit score. So if somebody passes in a 900 or something like that, an impossible number, we need to flag that as something went wrong and it's with the credit score. That's it. We've now set up a very simple truth table. Now that we have our two rules, how do we make them work in decisions? Actually, you know what? This is cool too. Before we get into that, let's me show this to you here. So let's say somebody has like a 400 credit score. We're expecting them to be auto rejected. Let's see if they're auto rejected. I'm sorry, guys, you're auto rejected. Yeah. What if we did a 675 middle range? Yeah. Hey, yeah, manual review. Okay, I'm not gonna belabor that point. I'm gonna go ahead and move into the actual flow example here. Now, I do want to call something else out here in decisions. We have a new tool here, the Project Health Meter, which is monitoring you for best practices. I think it's going to yell at me because I didn't include a description. I currently don't have any unit tests, and it's what else? That's basically all it's yelling at me about. Everything else is fine. This rule's going to validate correctly. The truth table has a great name. It's just, hey, those two things that you didn't include, yeah, we're knocking you down to a 66 so that when our code auditors come in and perform a code review, they can start identifying the designer entities that need the most work. So something with a 66 is not great, and I would fix that by including unit tests or a description. But for right now, we're just going to move on. That's how you can tell at a glance if we're working developing a project for you, or if you have your own team developing a project for you and you just want a real quick glance into how well it's going, those numbers are available to give you kind of a starting point for that particular discussion. So we have our two rules. Let's create a flow to actually use those rules. Create flow. A bunch of different flow types here. We're not going to get into it on this particular presentation like we are with the rules. Just know that in general, you're just going to be using this pretty basic flow here. So I'm just going to call this demo rule flow and create. Okay, so I have this lovely piece of work here. I have a start step and I have an end step. Gives it to you those two steps every time. There are a couple of different flow types out there that actually don't have an end step. I think some of the ones that are about like reporting things on a dashboard or something like that may not have an end step. But for our purposes, yes, we have this guy. And new feature, it snaps to grid. Isn't that cool? Also, just to also give another peek behind the curtain here, this is very similar to a presentation that was given last year, but there have been so many advances in decisions. A new version of it is merited here. So if you attended last year's version of this presentation, you're like, this seems very similar to what he said before. There's a reason for that. There's a lot of things that have changed. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to run our rule. All you have to do is grab it out of the toolbox and drag it out there.
Frank, I didn't do this. I wasn't hosting this webinar last year. So there is that difference. That's a big difference.
Yes. Different people have different insights into what's going on here. And hopefully we can make something entertaining happen. All right. So we're going to connect our start step to our rule. We have not specified what our rule is. We have a chance to build it here. We could create it. We can name it. Since we've already created it, I'm going to go pick it out of our database. So we're going to go, no, we're not going to create new. We're going to pick existing. And isn't this cool? It's right here. Identified recent things associated with our project. If it isn't here and it's in your project, you can go in there, look through the folders, and you can find it. But yeah, we're going to do our check salary and age range. There, it's now.
What Frank was showing you there, the ability to pick an existing rule is one of the secret shortcuts that decisions can bring to the table for you. If you wanted to use us in various departments, if you wanted to apply a statement rule or a truth table to different business units, different products, different situations, instead of having to go build that rule from the ground up, you can simply go pick that statement rule and reuse it again. Sorry, Frank, go ahead.
Exactly. No, yeah, it's great insights. Love it. All right. Our other rule was a truth table. So we just grab the run truth table. And similar to before, we're just going to pick the existing one. You'll notice it filtered out the one that is just a statement rule. It's only showing us the one that's a truth table. So we're going to pick that. And so the first check was, are they above a certain age? Do they make a certain amount of money? If they do, we want to go ahead and check their credit score. If not, we're going to go down kind of the auto rejection path. So I need to grab a step that's going to output the word auto rejected. Now, remember on the truth table here, we set up the outputs to be auto rejected, manual approved, auto approved, whatever. This is not outputting that value. So I need to go ahead and create a step that is going to output that value. I could set this up to output that value, but just keeping it breezy right now. We're going to go into the templates here because I made this step earlier and saved it as a template to make this process much, much faster. If you're going to be doing something a whole bunch of times, you're going to be using the same chunk of code, the same code snippet over and over again, you can just save it as a template. It drags it out. So, hey, it's already filled out my information for me. We're going to be creating a variable called results, and we're going to map to that a list where the only thing in the list is the word auto rejected. We're going to keep it as a list just in case we're doing like scoring later on. We're like, how many auto approves versus auto rejecteds did this get? We can expand on it more easily if we've established that it's a statement like that. Now, what if we want, I'll just go connect this to the end step. what if we want an additional step in this process where if somebody's approved here and approved here, we want to fire off an email to an interested party within the company, like, hey, by the way, somebody just applied and they did great. Maybe reach out to them. So I've already templatized our email step. It's already got the from field. It's already got uh, the body of the message written. It's not super elaborate, just for the purposes of the demo. But we can just real quick hook this up. Yeah, guess what? Now we have send email logic in here. And because it's templatized, any other flows we make that we want to use similar logic in, we just drag it out of here. And we go ahead and we can just snap it to that end step. And we're imagining this as part of a larger process. So inputting into this are going to be some values, and other flows, other logic are going to be looking for what came out of this flow. So we're going to go ahead and set up our output here. And that is going to be, what were those results? Nope, that's not how you spell that. And it's going to be a list. Because like I said, if we expand on this, maybe we're going to want additional values that get passed out, not just the one total result. We're going to save. So this guy is already outputting something called results. This is already looking for it. We're going to go ahead and map that in, and we're going to say the results from that earlier step. And what's also cool is we're going to change this guy to results. So either path that goes down now, whatever the decision is going to get mapped to a variable called results, and that's going to be output here. So it's the same output for later flow steps to, or later flow logic to a process. And I think that's just kind of neat. Now, you'll notice that decisions is self-validating along the way, and we have errors notifications on both of these guys. So before we move on, before we advance further, decisions is going, hey, wait a second, you got to come back and check this rule real quick. There's something wrong with it. And if you didn't see that up there, you can also see it over here. It's calling out that actually we haven't set up any inputs on these. These rules have inputs. We just haven't passed any values into them. And decisions is like, before you leave, this is not going to work until you map in some inputs. So what we need to do is figure out where that information is coming from. You'll remember that we set up age and salary on this rule, and we set up credit score on this rule. We can set up the input on this flow to be those values so that this flow is receiving that information from, let's say, somebody filled out a questionnaire, they filled out a web form, they filled out a bunch of the information can come from a bunch of different sources. Maybe there's an agent at an office somewhere who works with clients and inputs their information for them. They're all going to kind of commonly funnel into this one part of the process here. So we're going to set up that input data right now. And remember the three things we're looking for were age, salary, and credit score. I will never be able to type. All right. And if we remember these values, remember that we're never going to have a decimal value in credit score. We're never going to have a decimal value age. But the salary can be a decimal value, so we're going to use that. Now that we have these inputs, these become aware for the flow steps to utilize. And we're going to go ahead and do that right now. We're going to do some flow data mapping. So we're going to take the age input that's hanging around in the flow. It's existing in this flow space here. We're going to tell this flow step to grab that. And we're going to tell it to also grab the salary data that's floating around in this space. So we're going to grab salary. And this guy over here, we're going to go ahead and grab the credit score. And guess what? This is now set up. This is actually fully functioning flow. We can go in here and we can test this and see if it's working. So let's go ahead and debug. Let's do a case where we think the individual is going to pass. So we're going to say they're 30 years old, which is older than that 24. Their credit score is 800. Fantastic, right? Great. And they also make 100 grand a year. This is an ideal candidate for us to contact somebody in the company, let them know, hey, a great applicant just applied, reach out to them. So we're going to start debugging. And what happened? We're going to go through, check the salary and age range. Yeah. Oh, hey, this looks kind of like the debugger we saw earlier when we were in the statement rule. But yeah, it checked both of them. It returned true. And we can even right click on this to get those inputs here in real time. We don't see the breakdown like it was in the rule, but we can see what the inputs were and what the output is. This is all, by the way, a new debugger. So this is actually, I think, my first application with it. Uh, then the truth table. Let's see what the truth table looked like using the older kind of style here. And yeah, 800 was not between these two values. 800 was not between these two values, but it was here, fan. Look at that. Auto approved. Great. Let's see what happens if we right click on this. It's pretty much the same information broken down. It just doesn't show you the different rows that it went through, but it gives you a real quick overview of what happened here. So if you have a truth table, it's 10,000 rows long or something like that. You just want a quick breakdown of what happened. You don't have to comb through the whole thing. This is what you could use. And a notice email was sent out, and the result was auto approved. So later flow steps, later flow logic was looking to see what was the result of this one. It is just the word auto approve was passed in, and the word auto approve is being passed out, and that's available for the next pieces of logic to look at. What if we fail though? What if I have a great credit score and a great salary, but I just became an adult? Oh, no, we failed. Oh, a shame. So that results that was coming out of here before that's at auto approved, we're setting that same variable value, but we're setting it to auto rejected. So when I click on this guy, it should say that it's outputting the value auto rejected. I am not in the debugger. Let's try that again. I exited out of the debugger too soon. 800, $1 billion. There we go. Now it's showing that it's being auto rejected as part of the process. I want you to remember all that we've done here because we're going to revisit this at the very end of the presentation, but just remember how this was working because we're going to call it in an unusual way later on. So, but that's it. That's our two most common rules. And how you can actually leverage them in a flow using flow logic. We've actually accomplished a lot already here. Now that we've covered the basics of this, I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about what our other rule types are. Yeah, let's save. We did good work. Our other rule types. So if I go up here to create rule, you'll see all the different kinds of rules that we can make. I already showed you the statement rule. I already showed you the truth table. So the remaining ones are kind of fun here. There's the sequential rule. This one is a different flavoring of the rules I've just shown you. Sequential rule allows you for a bunch of different rules to connect in different ways and connect them together so that they operate as a single rule. The rule chain is very similar to that, except that you can go both directions in a rule chain. You can go forward, you can go backward, you can hit a certain step and turn around and come back and reevaluate earlier rules. If your logic is set up that you need something like that, you need them to be able to go either direction, the rule chain is your guy. The rule extension is kind of neat. If you're building a rule and you discover that it doesn't have a verb that you're looking for, so you remember when we were looking at our numbers, we had between and greater than, less than. If you needed to evaluate something weird like is a factorial of or whatever, the rule extension is where you would start creating custom verbs for your the rules that are being evaluated. So the other three here. There's a matrix rule, there's the rule set, and there is the formula rule. These are supremely cool, and I'm going to show you actual examples I've made of these because talking about them doesn't do them justice. So first up, we're going to do the matrix rule. And I created it here. This is pretty much a direct lift from last year's. But I made a thing that's going to tell me how to play blackjack. So I come from the video game industry. I am super into gaming, and one of the ones I've been trying to get better at is blackjack or 21, whatever you want to call it. There are optimal strategies for it, and I have created this matrix rule to help identify those optimal strategies that I will some point plug into a program to allow to quiz me on what I should do in certain situations. What a matrix rule basically is, you can almost think of it as like two different truth tables intersecting with each other. So across the top, I have what the dealer's card equals. You only see one card of the dealer's in this particular game, and it's going to be a value between 2 through 10. All the face cards are 10, or a possible ace. If there's no matches, we need to start throwing errors. And we're going to see also what do I have over here. And first thing we're going to do, it's going to process through these logically. So whatever two cards you were dealt, it's going to go, hey, if you have an ace, you have this whole other piece of logic. You're going to go down this route rather than going down. If you had a pair of cards, or if you have neither of those values, we're just going to be looking at what your hand value is. And I think with this, maybe I can start hitting up Vegas or maybe Monte Carlo, depending on where I can get some pay time off and actually get to. Uh, so,
You don't want any off, Frank. You like this too much.
oh, you are very quiet right now. I can barely hear you. All right.
I said you don't want any paid time off. You like this too much.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, what can we do with this? Let me show you some test cases here. I have pre-made some tests. You know how before I was manually entering some values here? If you have values that you like, you can go ahead and save them, and you can save them as a unit test or as sample data. The primary difference being that unit tests come with a rule evaluation that's going to ask you, hey, with these particular inputs, did it come out the way that you were expecting it to? So if I have an ace and a seven, and the dealer is showing a 10, I'm not sure off the top of my head what I'm supposed to do in that situation. So what I will do is I will ask the system to please run this test and tell me what the intersecting values were for that. And it's going to say, well, let's say you did have an ace. That's true. Your ace card was a seven. And let's see, the dealer was a 10. So let's go down here and see. Okay, so potentially he's going to beat me, it seems like. So my safest option here is to hit. What is interesting now, and kind of a new feature here in decisions, this wasn't here last time I showed this particular demonstration, is that it actually breaks down the rule evaluations according to what it did across the top row and what it did down the left-hand side. So the top row, it was just looking at, hey, it's simple number match here. And that's what this looks like. It was a start step and it was an end step. Hey, did it equal that card value? String to match was 10? Yeah, it was 10. A little bit more complex was that left-hand side where it goes down and starts kind of doing a logic tree. Okay, did you have an ace? True or false? Yes. Okay, was it 2 or 6? 2, 3, or 6? No. Was it a 7? Yes. Okay. From that point, we're going to catch our data as it's going through the system, and it's going to output. This used to be much more obfuscated and didn't break down the kind of the breakdown in logic that was happening here. So this is really cool in helping you troubleshoot the system. But let's see, I have another one. I think the other test I had was a pair of nines versus a dealer seven. Let's just see what that does. So it went through. I didn't have an ace, so it comes down here to the false. Do I have a matching pair of cards? Yes, I do. They're both nines. Cool. What should I do with that dealer's seven? I should stand. I have an 18. Odds are he's gonna have a 17. I'm cool. And you can see the breakdown there. It went a different route. I didn't have an ace. I had a matching pair. And it they're getting better and better with these rule tools that we have, making it much simpler to troubleshoot any problems that you may be encountering. But this is what a matrix rule looks like. It evaluates a whole bunch of criteria on the left. It can evaluate a whole bunch of nesting criteria across the top, and it will pass out whatever kind of value you want. In this case, we're passing out strings that give me a strategy. Do I double down? Do I split? Whatever. So yeah, that's cool. You can do a lot with matrix rules. Next up, we're going to talk about, let me consult my notes real quick. I think the next rule we're going to look at is our rule set. Now, I have made the rule set, and you'll notice it's not here. That's because it's actually in its own kind of little folder here. Because it's a little bit more elaborate, it needs a little bit more room to breathe. To properly present what this particular rule is doing, we need space. So, what is a rule set? A rule set is kind of like those other things I was talking about, the sequential rule and the rule chain, where you can set things up to evaluate multiple rules and treat them like a single rule for the purposes of plugging this into a flow. In our case, what I've done here is I'm determining if somebody can have a truck rented to them. There are requirements in the states. Not every driver's license allows you to drive every kind of vehicle in the United States. So I'm going to try to speed up a little bit here. We're dragging a little bit. So different braking systems require different endorsements. So if you are trying to rent a truck that has a hydraulic braking system, you can't have a driver's license from one of these states. You're going to get denied. Mechanical braking systems, like most U-Haul trucks, most budget rental cars, things like that, you can get approved for that. Age, we don't rent to anybody who's under 25. This is just going to look like a simple statement rule. But instead of passing out true or false, we're passing out the words approved or denied. If we want to run a flow, if we want to manipulate data or anything like that, we can include that as part of the logical evaluation of what's coming out of this. And the last thing, yeah, even if you're over 25, if you're a bad driver, we're not going to give you a truck. So if you're less than 40 and you have a driver's point balance of less than 0, so it goes like 0 to 5, but you can go negative 100 if you are really, really bad at driving. If this one evaluates true, if you're less than 40 and you are a bad driver, it's going to say you're denied. Even though it's returning true, denied is what we're setting as our output here. And what's really cool about these is you'll notice I don't have any inputs up here. That's because they all share common inputs. When you set up this rule, it's going to allow you to go in here and set up your rules for all of them to share, or all of your inputs to share. And if you want to, let's say you're doing a promotional week and you don't care if people are bad drivers, you can turn off one of these rules. It still treats the rule set as the collection of rules, but it's going to skip over that guy. So if we do a debug, I have a whole bunch of pre-setups here. Let me go back and actually look at what the inputs were. So like if you're 30, you're trying to rent a truck with a mechanical braking system, you have a pretty good driver's license and you're from the state of Virginia, all of these are approved conditions. So it runs it in a flow. It says, yeah, that checked out, approved, that one checked out, approved, and that one checked out, approved across the board. You can really dig into these. I love the new, like the color coding is new and all that. And also it's telling you how long that took. So if you're doing any performance testing, you're trying to drill down on why exactly some part of your system is taking too long, you can go check out these rules like, oh, maybe we need to reevaluate this rule. It's taking almost half a millisecond to execute. And then you have the other guys here where like, oh, the pneumatic braking system is going to fail me. So one of these is going to say denied. Yep, there it is right at the top. And we can set up later flow logs that goes, hey, if any of them were denied the whole process. Now, let's see if I also set these up to all run at the same time. Yeah, because these all have rules on them. They go, by the way, if we are, have the pneumatic braking system and all the other things failed, we need this to go, the output list needs to include the word denied because that's how it should have been processed. If all of things are good, it should be approved. And yeah, hey, we're approved at all positions. When it ran it with this input data, all those came back approved. So it says that test came back with a success. So that's how rule sets can work. You can build the rules, you can turn them on and off. Cool stuff. Last thing I'm going to talk about with in the decisions environment here is the formula rules. These used to be called expression rules. These are now formula rules. And these allow you to just make a rule that's a mathematic expression. So in this case, I want to know if I have enough money to buy something. It's going to have a base cost. It's going to have a shipping cost. It's going to have a tax associated with it where I take the base cost and at a certain tax rate, it adds that money on top of it. And I can set up my inputs here. Those all get used in this equation over here. I have unit tests. I can say, all right, so what's my affordable unit test? Let's say I have $7,000. The base cost is $5,000. The shipping cost is so that's like $6,000 total. And at 11.5% tax rate, I want to check to see if this still comes out less than the $7,000 funds I have. And it breaks down the math for you. It says, yeah, that was true. You did have enough money. And it makes more sense to read this from bottom to top, but it does the math according to the order of operation. So the first thing it does is the thing most inside the parentheses tells you what that evaluated as. Then the next set of parentheses, what that evaluated as. And you can follow the math up to see what its ultimate evaluation was. If I had $4,950 and it cost this kind of stuff, well, what happens here? This one evaluated false. In fact, it did so fast I didn't even see that it did it. And you can go back up through the math and go, yeah, 4,960, that's less than the 4,950 we have, so you can't buy it. I'm sorry, you have to save another $10. Maybe next week. So yeah, that's expression rules. You know what? I'm not going to have time to dig into one of the other things that we had going on, which is the underwriting rule system. If you schedule a demo with our team, our wonderful pre-sales team can come in and they can show you this rules demo where we talk about how to actually make and modify rules without going into the rules system. So you can, instead of bringing up that statement rule template that allowed you to set, the rule verb and the value and everything. If you want to hide that from your users, maybe your business analysts don't want to dig into the system that much. You'd like to give them something a little bit prettier, a little bit more presentable. You can totally build decisions in a way that exposes those values and in a much more friendly way. So I don't have enough time to go into this because there's one really cool thing I want to do. And if you remember, I told you to remember that demo flow that we created, this guy right here. I am going to do something fun. We're going to call this rule outside of decisions using a lovely little program called Postman, which gets to pretend to be other programs. So let's say you have an existing web interface that you like, but you want decisions to handle the back-end processes. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up this flow to make it accessible through an API call. Real simple process here. Could not be easier. We just go, hey, make an API call. Done. We're going to go view. We're going to look at what information is available here. I'm just going to go ahead and use the current session ID. And what it's doing right now is it's writing our API call that we could hand to another system to go, hey, if you want to access this flow that's in decisions, here's the URL you're going to need. Here's the payload you're going to need to provide. And here is that URL right here. I'm going to grab this, Control C. Let's bring Postman back over here. I'll just paste that up here. And this is the payload it's expecting. It says that, here's your inputs and such. If you want to interface with the system, you need to work in this format. So I'm going to say somebody is 30 years old, has a $100,000 salary, whatever, and their credit score was 800. So I seem to recall that this should pass. So if I send this should come back auto-approved. Let's see if it does. It did. How cool is that? If I give it 18, which should fail it, and send, auto-rejected. This is another system outside of decisions, calling decisions and handing it the input information it needs. Decisions does its magic, works its math, and hands back the results auto-rejected, which you could maybe display on a web portal or fire off an email to the applicant, anything like that. There's a whole bunch of really cool things that you can do with decisions here, and I just don't have enough time to go into all of it and still have time for any last words from Jeff here. So Jeff, with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to you, buddy, to wrap this up.
Fantastic. Frank, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate the passion and energy that you bring to our organization. So thank you for taking us through that demonstration. That was wonderful. If there are any questions, now would be a great time to present them. And if not, then we can move on. I don't see anything currently, so we'll move on. What's next? So as I said, we are continuing our free webinar series. Our next one will be with an organization next week that will be with Foster's, a retail grocery chain in the Grand Caymans. If you would like to schedule a demonstration, if anything that we talked about today is top of mind within your organization or some type of project that you're working on, we'd love to take you through a demonstration of decisions, show you our rules engine, show you integration capabilities, workflow capabilities, forms capabilities, any of those things we're happy to dive into and or attend an event. I do see a question coming up that I will answer. Where can I find a document on all of the APIs supported by decisions? That is a great question. If you go to our website, and I can do this right now as well, but if you go to our decisions website, if you go to the resources tab, if you go down to the bottom of the resources tab, there's a documentation site. I'm going to post it
Just
here.
as a heads up, you're not sharing that part of your screen.
Okay, well, I am, I've just answered it in, in the description, but that's where you can find it. If you wanted me to bore you through my ability to navigate our website, I'm happy to do so, but I just dropped it in there. And
can I throw out one extra thing on that? If you navigate to that site, there's a little robot looking icon in the bottom right. That is Dart. That is our artificial intelligence tool. You can ask it questions in plain English, and it will guide you to the right resources.
Stole my thunder, Frank. I was
How
going to talk
dare I?
about that agentic use case that we have.
I'm going back on mute.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to do a refresh on our rules engine in this category of free webinars. I would invite you to take advantage of this as often as possible, because who knows? Someday we may charge for the value that we bring to our clients. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Frank.